Okay, good morning, everyone. Today we are going to talk about present simple questions and answers. This is class number 2, and my name is Sabi Vega. Okay, the first thing that we have to take in consideration is what is a tense? What is a tense in English? A tense is what shows us what is the action performed. Okay, when is the action performed? There are different kinds of tenses. We have a past tense, present tense, and future. But in the middle of these different tenses, we have another tenses like past perfect continue, past perfect, okay, past continuous, present perfect continuous, present perfect. We have present continuous, we have future perfect continuous, we have future perfect, and future continuous. Today, we are going to focus on the things that happen right now, I mean the present, the ones in blue, okay? Today, our class is going to be focused on how and when to use simple present tense and how to make and form questions. Okay, when to use simple present tense? Okay, what is the function of the simple present tense? We use simple present tense when we talk about permanent actions. Like, for example, we live in Chiriquí. This is something that we can change. This is something that is permanent. Okay, he works at the bank. So this is his permanent work. So those are permanent actions. Also, we use simple present tense when we talk about routines. Like, for example, I wake up at 7 o'clock every day. She goes to bed at 10 p.m. Those are things that are a routine, things that you do day by day at the same time and at the same thing. When to use it? When do we use simple present? I mentioned that we talk about permanent action when we talk about daily routines, but also we use simple present tense when we refer to facts. Which are facts? Scientific things, hypotheses and theories, things that we can change. For example, the sun rises in the east. This always happens like this because this is a fact. Our classes start at 11:10 a.m., so this is a fact. Also, we use simple present tense when we talk about frequency. I usually eat salad for lunch. He usually or he always brushes his teeth in the morning. And here we see that we combine the simple present tense with the frequency adverb. As I mentioned before, most of the times we use simple tense when we talk about daily routine. And here we have some examples. Okay, repeat with me. I wake up. I get up. I take a shower. I get dressed. I comb my hair. I have breakfast. I go to work. I start work. I answer email. I have lunch. I finish work. I arrive home. I feed the dog. I cook dinner. I have dinner. I watch TV. I go to bed. I fall asleep. And here we have a sequence of events that happen since we wake up until we fall asleep. So there are many things you do during the day, but they are routines. You do it day by day without changing anything or slight changes. Remember that I mentioned that we combine simple present tense with adverb of frequency, but which are adverb of frequency? Okay, these words, they modify the action. I mean, they modify the verb. They indicate how frequent you do something. Like, for example, I always brush my teeth at night. That means that I never skip from Sunday to Sunday, from Monday to Sunday, sorry, I always brush my teeth at night. So we have the adverbs of frequency, they indicate a degree. Like, for example, always indicates a 100 percentage, usually a 90 percentage, normally, or the word generally is 80 percentage, often and frequently, sorry, is 70 percentage, sometimes is 50 percentage, occasionally is 30 percentage, seldom 10 percentage, hardly ever or rarely 5 percentage, and never, that means 0 percentage. Okay? Remember, these are approximately numbers. So we have here an example using the frequency adverb always. I always brush my teeth at night, using usually. I usually walk to work. Normally. I normally get good marks. Often. I often read in bed at night. I sometimes sing in the shower. Occasionally. I occasionally go to bed late. Seldom. I seldom add salt to my food. Hardly ever. I hardly ever get angry. Never. Vegetarians never eat meat. Look at the position of the adverb in a sentence. Here we have the combination or the form. We have the subject, the adverb, and the main verb. For example, Daniel is the subject, always is the adverb, and passes is the main verb. So we have the sentence, Daniel always passes his exam. Okay? In simple present tense, the position of the adverb is before the main verb. With the verb be, things are different. Remember, verb be is the most special verb in the English language. So when we have verb be is first. So we have subject, verb be plus adverb. He is always happy. So with verb be, the position of the adverb changes to last. With the main verb, the positions of the adverbs goes first. When do we use auxiliary verbs? Like, for example, when we have a combination of a different tense, like, for example, present perfect, the adverb is in the middle. So we have subject, auxiliary verb, adverb, and main verb. So we have Suzanne has always lived in New York. So in here you can see the correct order or the position of the adverbs in frequency in the simple present tense. Now, let's see how to form the simple present. Okay, there are three categories of sentences: positive sentences or affirmative, negative sentences, and questions. We have to pay attention to the subject in the sentence. Let's start with the pronouns. The first person pronoun, I. So you say, I work, you work, we work, and they work. In here we have the plural, you, we, and they, the plural pronouns. So if you notice, the verb do not change at all. It keeps the same to have subject and then verb in simple present tense, affirmative sentences. With the third person singular, he, she, or it, that I call the VIP, we have a slight difference. The verb takes an S. So we have he works, she works, it works. This is in affirmative sentences. When we have negative sentences, we need the help of an auxiliary. Remember, the auxiliary work is to show the tense and also help us with the negative forms. So you form the negative with the auxiliary do. Do is the auxiliary form for I, you, we, and they. I mean the plural plus I, the first person. And does, that is the singular form of the verb do, works for the singular pronouns, he, she, or it. When the subject is singular, we use the auxiliary verb does. So in the negative, we say does not. We can use both of them using contraction forms, don't or doesn't. So it takes like this. I don't work. You don't work. We don't work. They don't work. Or in the singular, remember the auxiliary takes the ES that shows the present tense. Okay? He doesn't work. She doesn't work. It doesn't work. When we have questions, we have two categories of questions. We have yes-no questions and we have informative questions. Let's learn the yes-no questions first. Why are they called yes-no questions? Because the answer is a yes or a no. They are not asking you to give extra information, just a confirmation. It could be negative or it could be positive. So we have that. We use the same auxiliary that we use in the negative for the question, depending on the subject. If the subject is I, the first pronoun, you, we, and they, the plural forms, the auxiliary is do. But the position of do changes. Now, do is first position, is at the beginning of the sentence, the statement, okay? So you use, do I work? Do you work? Do we work? Do they work? When we ask questions and the subject is the singular forms, he, she, or it, we use the auxiliary form does. Remember, when we have questions, do and those goes first. So they start the sentence. This is just a switch of the position. You move the auxiliary that was after the subject at the beginning of the sentence. So we have, does he work? Does she work? Does it work? Notice that now we don't need an S in the verb anymore. Why? Because does take it. Does takes the ES and it shows that is present tense. Now we have the second category of questions, informative questions. When we use informative questions, these words goes at the beginning of the question. Okay, so the position is question word, auxiliary do, subject, and main verb. So we have it like this. Example, where do you live? What do you do? Let's check some spelling changes. The things that we have to pay close attention when we talk about simple present tense is the spelling changes. Yes, but specifically remember that only 3 subjects are affected, the third person singular. When we talk about females, she, girl, or when we talk about male, he, boy, or when we talk about objects or animals, it. Okay? Table, chair, lamp, computer, laptop. When we talk about this kind of subject, we have to pay close attention to the spelling changes in the actions. I mean, the verbs. Okay, most verbs in simple present tense just need to be add an S. Like, for example, you say, she dances. She cooks. She sleeps. In here, you just add the S at the end of the word, at the end of the main verb. When the verbs end in S, sh, and X, we have to add ES. Like, for example, kiss changes into kisses. Wash, washes. Teach, teaches. Fix, fixes. Why do we need an extra vowel here? This is a pronunciation fix. Because it is difficult to pronounce kisses, you say kisses. You add an extra syllable to the word. Okay? So in the verbs ending in consonant and Y, you drop the I and the Y, sorry, you drop the Y and add IES. Like, for example, study. This verb ends in Y. What do we do is drop, eliminate the Y and change it. We add IES. So study changes into studies. She studies medicine. Try change into tries. He tries 3 times. Okay, so we have other cases, the irregular. There are always exceptions in any rule. So for example, go, that changes, that finish in a vowel, changes into ES again. Go, goes. Do, does, and have, that is an irregular, changes into has. So we have to take in consideration these rules, these spelling changes, when you use present simple with the subjects he, she, and it. Okay? Now let's focus on the yes, no questions and short answers. Remember that I mentioned that today we are going to learn how to make questions in English. So let's start with the basic ones. The basic questions are the yes, no questions. Remember, they are called that way because the possible answers are affirmative or negative. It should be a yes or a no. So remember the position. Do is the auxiliary for the subjects I, we, you, and they, and does is the auxiliary when the subject is he, she, or it. So we have the sentence here. Do they need help? Remember, it's important that you have to mark the question at the question mark at the end of the sentence. I know that in Spanish we use question marks at the beginning and at the end, but in English we just use question mark at the end of the sentence, and you have to do it. There is a slightly difference in pronunciation. It could be rising intonation or falling intonation, okay, depending if you are working with a yes, no question or a who question word. So we have here, do they need help? Yes, they do. We use the same auxiliary to give the answer, okay? If the answer is affirmative, you say yes, they do. If the answer is negative, you say they, no, they don't. You repeat the negative twice. So do is the auxiliary in the question, do is the auxiliary in the short answer. You can use contractions in the negative, but you can't use contractions in the affirmative answer. So when with this statement, does he speak French? Yes, he does. No, he doesn't. Okay. In here, you notice that the auxiliary does is the one that starts the question. You should use the same auxiliary does in the answer. Okay. Yes, he does. No, he doesn't. In the affirmative, we don't need to use contractions, but with the negative, we can use contractions. Doesn't. Do you like this song? Yes, I do. No, I don't. Okay, what I notice here is that you have to pay attention when you make questions with you. Most of the time, they are direct questions. So you have to answer using I. They are asking you. So you answer I. So you have to switch, in this case, the pronoun. Do you like this song? Yes, I do. Or no, I don't. Remember, in the affirmative, we don't use contractions. In the negative, we use contractions. In this case, don't. Remember, you have to pay attention that do is the auxiliary for the subjects I, you, we, and they, and does is the auxiliary for the third person singular he, she, and it. Okay, which are the most common mistakes that we had every time that we use simple present tense? The first one is the confusion with the tense, okay? We have to be clear that we use simple present tense for permanent actions. Like, for example, I live in Tokyo. I am living in Tokyo is incorrect because I'm living is a present progressive. It's something that is happening right now and it is in progress. But the fact that you live in Tokyo is something that is permanent. Okay. Another common mistake is the verb form. Remember, when we have this, we have to pay close attention to the subject in the sentence. In this case, the sentence subject is we, and the sentence contains an S. Remember, we overuse sometimes the rule. S only apply when the subject is singular, he, she, or it. In this case, the subject is plural form, we. So the verb doesn't need an S. We like to travel. In here we have the negative form. Also, there is a mistake in the use of the modal auxiliary. They is a plural pronoun. So we have to use the plural form of the verb do, the auxiliary do, and plus the negative form. So you say they don't eat vegetables. It is incorrect to use doesn't because doesn't is for he, she, or it, third person singular. The same happens here in the question. If the subject is you uses the form do, not the form does. Do you talk to him often? Okay. Another common mistake is the spelling. The spelling. Yes. Remember, there are some rules for spelling. In the case of the verb tries, okay, we apply the rules. We add the S. But check, tries contain a Y and a consonant. So the rule says that you have to drop the Y and then add IES. This is the correct form of this verb in simple present tense. So you say she tries to save money. Another common mistake is the missing word. Sometimes when we use question words, we forget that we have to include the modal auxiliary. Having a question word here doesn't mean that you don't need to use an auxiliary. Of course, you need to use an auxiliary when you are asking something with a question word. So you say, what time do you finish work? It is incorrect to say, what time you finish work? You say, what time do you finish work? Okay, now let's check at the question words. Question words, they are information question words. Why are they called like that? Because when you use them, it's because you are asking for extra information. You need more information. You need to have more about the answer. It's not just a simple yes or a no. In here, you have some examples of these WH questions. We have, who. We use who or you use who to ask about a person or people. You use what to ask about things. You use where to ask about place. You use why to ask about reason. And you use how to ask about manner. Okay, there are two more question words that do not appear here, but I will mention them. You use when you ask about time. And you use how often and how many. How often is for frequency and how many and how much is for quantity. So they indicate something in specific. So you just need to learn, memorize, and start using them to have extra information in your answers. Okay, so in here we have a chart that presents us the correct position of the question words, the modal auxiliary, the subject, and the rest of the complements in the simple present tense. Okay, we have here present simple questions. Questions with be. Remember, be is the most special verb in English. So when we want to make a question using be, this is the correct position. The question word, how old is Sharon? What is this? Where are you from? So this is the correct position. Question word first, auxiliary be second, subject third, and then adjective, nouns, and the rest of the different things that we use to make sentences. Okay? Questions with do. Remember, question word at the beginning, auxiliary verb, do or does, then subject and infinitive. Then we have, where do you work? What time does he get up? How often do they go out? What do you do? Remember, when you don't need a question word, the first word is an auxiliary verb, do. Do you like pizza? Is Sharon from the USA? So in here you have some examples of the position, the correct position, the correct word order of the questions. Okay, so we continue here with do and does. Here more examples. Remember, singular pronouns. I, you, he, she, and it. Yes, you is both singular and plural. Don't forget that. Who do you, what, with, where, why, how often, and how much. Okay, here we have some examples of question words. Remember, who, ask for people. What, ask for things. When, ask for time. Where, ask for place. Why, ask for reason. How, often, and much. They sometimes ask for frequency, and how much ask for quantity. How ask for manner. Okay, they ask for manner. So in here we have the position of the modal auxiliary. Remember, this is in second position. The question word first, the auxiliary second, and the subject pronoun or the name, the proper name, is in the third position. Then the verb goes after the subject in the question. Remember, you have to use a question mark at the end of the question. It is mandatory, okay, in English. Why does she study English? Because she wants to improve her career. Okay, now let's focus a little bit, or let's review something about the verb to be. Remember, verb to be is the most special verb in English. It is an auxiliary, it is a verb itself, it helps us with everything. It is involved in everything, in every space, in everywhere in English, right? So we have here verb to be. We have some examples of affirmative sentences. I am happy, you are at school, he is hungry, she is a nurse, and it is big. Remember, verb to be in the simple present tense has three forms: am, are, and is. I use am if the subject is I. I am happy. You use are if the subject is you, singular or plural, and they and we. Okay? The plural forms. And we use is if the subject is the third person singular, he, she, or it. Okay? So we have here some examples of the plurals. We are early, you are students, they are quiet. We have the negative forms. We form the negative adding the word not to the sentence. Check the blue squares here. I am not sad. I'm not. You don't have the contraction for I'm not. It's not possible to do it because we can't pronounce it properly. Okay, this is the reason we can have a contraction. You aren't at home. Remember, when we make a contraction, it's because we drop, eliminate, supreme the vowel sound. You aren't at home. He isn't thirsty. She isn't a pilot. It isn't a small. We have the plural forms. We aren't late. You aren't teacher. They aren't noisy. Isn't is the contraction form of is not, and aren't is the contraction form of are not. When we use questions, remember, we have to switch the position of the auxiliary, in this case, verb to be. So in the affirmative sentence, we have, they are happy. If we want to transform or make this sentence into a question, we just switch the position, move the position of are, that was the second, to the first one, number one. They are happy. Now we have, are they happy? Remember, it's mandatory to include or to mark the question mark. She is rich. Now we move the position of is at the beginning of the sentence. So is number one. Is she rich? And the rest is written in the same way. So we have the short answers. If we have the auxiliary are, it is the same auxiliary that we use in the answer. Okay? Are they happy? Yes, they are. No, they aren't. Is she rich? Yes, she is. No, she isn't. Remember that we have contractions. Why do we use contractions? To sound more fluent. Okay? We use contractions to sound more natural because in a normal English environment, American people, English people, English spoken persons, they use contraction forms. So if you use contraction forms, you sound more natural. I'm not, he's not, he isn't, you are not, you're not, you aren't, we are not, we're not, we aren't, they are not, they're not, they aren't. Remember, for the rest, excluding I, the rest of the pronouns plus the combination of the verb to be conjugation, they have two forms of contractions. You can contract be with the pronoun, or you can contract the verb to be with the negative. Okay, now it's time for role playing. I would like Anya, could you please help me? Josue, are you with us?
Hey, yes, I'm here.
Okay, Josue, can you see the screen?
Yes, I can see.
Josue, you are going to be Mark. Anya is going to be Jennifer. Okay, let's role
Okay,
play this
teacher.
example of conversation. You are Mark. Anya is
Okay.
Jennifer. Start. One, two, three.
Hello, can I ask you some question for an interview?
Yes, I can answer some questions.
Thank you for taking the time. Now, first question. What do you do?
I work in a library. I am a librarian.
Are you married?
Mhm. Yes, I am.
What does your husband do?
He works as a policeman.
Do you usually have dinner together?
Yes, we do.
How often do your husband exercise?
Well, he sometimes exercises for 4 times a week, but he usually exercises only twice a week.
Where do you like going on holiday?
We rarely go on holiday. However, we like no, 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 okay. We like going to the mountains if we can.
What type of book do you read?
I often read horror stories.
Thank you very much for answering my questions.
You're welcome.
Excellent. Very good. Awesome, guys. You are brilliant. Fantastic. You did an excellent job. Congratulations and thank you. Okay, now let's talk about the assignments. Remember, this is a wrap up. Okay, what do you have to do available at the platform? You have two tasks, you have the midterm, and you have the final exam. Remember, you can check the different links that I uploaded there in the platform if you want to reinforce, continue reinforcing the content, and also the tutorials for learning how to record your voice using PowerPoint. Okay, see you soon.